Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Block, and this is Nurturing Nature with DocBlock. We're calling this series How to Grow Anthuriums Like a Pro, but this particular section is going to be dedicated more to propagation. We have a Discord server that talks about it in terms of the delivery suite, but all of these plants started from a small little seedling and then grew into these plants because of deliberate ways to propagate them, whether from seeds or tissue culture or cuttings directly from the plant. They'll all be discussed in the next few minutes. The Anthurium flower resembles a candle and is somewhat unique in that it goes through two successive sexual growth stages. The Anthurium flower initiates reproductive function by first showing its receptive female stage, during which time it can be successfully pollinated. After this stage concludes, the same flower then transitions to its male, and this is a pollen donor stage, and it begins to produce pollen over the next several days. The timing of receptivity does not allow a given flower's pollen to be used on itself because its receptive stage will have already ended. However, if that flower, when receptive pollen is received from another flower source, it will conceive to produce berries with seeds. If a flower fails to be successfully pollinated, it will wither away, but soon be replaced by a new leaf associated with a new flower. The transfer of pollen from the male stage of an Anthurium flower is usually done by insects and even small lizards, but you can collect and transfer pollen using tiny paintbrushes. However, I found that little makeup applicators work better. However, what works best for me is when I use my fingers and do the deed. I'll check that I can see a little bit of powder on my dry, clean fingers, and then when I have a female flower's receptive dewdrops, known as stigmatic fluid, I'll simply rub the pollen into it. And yes, freshness matters. As with people, timing is essential for conception. Of course, the female flower's receptive lubrication helps the pollen stick on contact or the penetration point. So new life in Anthuriums can be thought of as depending on timing, lubrication, and penetration. Go figure. If no girls are ready when a boy flower has his fresh pollen available, it can be collected, kept dry, and immediately stored in a freezer. I collect this pollen on makeup applicator brushes and use a funnel underneath to catch microscopic pollen grains in a small Ziploc bag along with a small anti-desiccant pack to minimize the humidity around the pollen and lengthen its shelf life for up to a few weeks. After several weeks to a few months, small bumps appear on the conceived flower that go on to develop berries that contain one or sometimes two seeds in each fruit. Ripe whole berries usually present themselves rather suddenly. While an intact whole berry can be planted, I found that fruit sugars inside the pulp break down through the oxidation and fermentation and then can progress into molds that often impact the seed inside. Over the past 40 years, I've sown well over 100,000 seeds and developed an efficient method for separating these fresh seeds from their berries. I can start by placing them in a stainless steel strainer and gently rub them into the wire mesh to remove the berry skin and then wash away the pulp with clean water, revealing the seeds inside. The seeds inside, after a few rinse and repeat cycles, result in some very small but cream-colored fresh seeds that are very easy to sow. The cleaned Anthurium seeds have a translucent surface membrane wrapped around it. Even before germination occurs, their color changes from cream to green. This is revealing active doubling of growth of cells inside called chloroplasts, capable of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the remarkable way that plants convert sunlight into their fuel energy, allowing it to grow. When I sow the seeds, I don't bury them. I have a much better success with germination when I place seeds on top of soil and keep them moist and warm. Surface sowing allows full spectrum light to penetrate the seed's chloroplasts, and this method reliably helps most of my seeds germinate. For germination, and all flowering plant seeds do it, somehow nature has evolved a miraculous event where the first taproot grows down, seeking water, and the first leaf goes up, seeking light. We might not know every fine little detail leading to germination, but we're glad it happens, because without it, the world's evolution, natural selection of plants, there would be no life on Earth as we know it. On close exam, the very first few roots show tiny little hair-like structures that are in a very real sense feeling their environment for the first time. Whether sensing moisture or responding to other components of their surroundings, including electromagnetic influences, microscopic sensory structures attest to the Anthurium root's sophisticated mechanism of survival, evidenced since the earliest stages of growth. The very first leaf's presentation is a momentous event to witness, much as the same way as a human birth is a wondrous event. Making baby anthuriums by pollinating a female flower with a different parent male flower's pollen can be a rewarding experience for gardeners. It relies on knowing some things about the genetics that determine why a hybrid might or might not look like its parent plant. This is known as Mendelian genetics, named after Gregor Mendel, the monk who experimented with peas that you may recall from high school class. Your siblings, brothers and sisters, are not genetic equals of either of their parents, are they? They're mixes of both. Because some traits may be dominant and others recessive, some genetic variation of what the offspring looks like is to be expected. I have a breeder's vision regarding which offspring might result from marrying two similar or dissimilar parents. I'll search through the resulting seedlings and select for vigor and whatever desired traits were sought as a significant moment. Although this endeavor is a time and space consuming experience, when a new creation that may have never before been seen is ultimately revealed, it can be a gratifying moment that in the breeder's vision has finally been realized. Making identical babies to any parent anthurium is possible with time and careful propagation from cuttings. It can be tedious and typically yields between 1 to 4 offshoots that are the exact same genetics as their single parent plant. So twins, triplets, or even quads are indeed possible to develop from direct cuttings. When more anthuriums are sought, plants can be produced by individual cells in a controlled laboratory setting. The process is called tissue culture and has been used for larger scale production to make orchids over the past greater than 30 years. Some advanced work on anthuriums has progressed through other ornamental plants and tissue culture for large-scale manufacturing to feed the world. And feeding the world really does rely on the modern lab sciences to supply the world's increasing demand for food, particularly in agriculturally challenged, underdeveloped countries.